Tonight, federal agents stormed Houston's port, seized fentanyl and millions in cash, and the evidence points to a powerful insider.
4:17 a.m. Houston, Texas. The air hung thick with humidity. Fog rolled in from Galveston Bay, swallowing the shipping cranes in gray silence. Red warning lights blinked atop container stacks like distant heartbeats. The port was never truly asleep, but at this hour, it breathed slowly. On the eastern pier, FBI Special Agent Marcus Cole watched through night vision binoculars as 3 unmarked vehicles rolled toward Warehouse 9. No headlights, no radio chatter, just shadows moving through shadows. 15 minutes earlier, an encrypted message had been intercepted by DEA cyber analyst. 4 words in Spanish: El Dragon duerme esta noche. The dragon sleeps tonight. That phrase had appeared in cartel communications for 6 months, always before a major shipment, always tied to the Gulf Cartel's most protected corridor. Tonight, the dragon was about to wake up. At 4:23 a.m., the coordinated strike began. 12 SWAT teams moved simultaneously across the Houston Port District. FBI tactical units breached the main gate of Warehouse 9. DEA agents hit a secondary storage facility 2 blocks east. ICE enforcement teams surrounded a commercial trucking depot on the port's northern edge. Flashbangs split the darknet. The concussive blasts echoed off steel containers. Glass shattered. Metal doors buckled under battering rams. Inside Warehouse 9, agents found what they expected and something they did not expected. 847 kilograms of cocaine packed inside shipping crates labeled as machine parts. Expected 2. 1 million fentanyl pills vacuum sealed in industrial drums. Expected 4. 3 million in cash bundled inside duffel bags near the loading dock. Not expected a reinforced steel door leading to a subterranean tunnel system that stretched 1.7 miles beneath the port, crossing under the ship channel and emerging inside a private marina on the opposite shore. The tunnel walls were lined with electrical conduit. Ventilation fans hummed. Rail tracks ran the length of the passage, designed to move heavy cargo on motorized carts. This was not improvised. At the tunnel's midpoint, agents found something else. A server rack bolted to the concrete floor. Hard drives still warm. Monitors displaying shipping schedules, container manifests, and GPS coordinates for 7 distribution hubs across Texas and Louisiana. Someone had been running this operation from underground. By 5:30 a.m., the FBI had secured the tunnel exit. DEA forensic teams began cataloging evidence. ICE agents detained 14 suspects, including 3 truck drivers who claimed they were just following orders. But the most critical discovery came at 6:12 a.m. Agent Cole stood in the server room, watching a data analyst scroll through encrypted files. Names appeared on the screen. Payment ledger. Authorization codes. One name appeared 47 times across 3 years of record. Raymond Castellanos, the fictional deputy director of the Texas Department of Public Safety. The investigation shifted within hours. By noon, federal prosecutors had obtained emergency warrants for phone records, financial accounts, and property holdings tied to Raymond Castellanos. The man responsible for coordinating state law enforcement operations across southern Texas had been flagged as a potential cartel asset. Inside the FBI Cyber Forensics Lab in Quantico, Virginia, analysts cracked the encryption on the server hard drives recovered from the tunnel. What they found was a masterpiece of criminal engineering. The network had a name: Operation Harbor Blade. Shell companies in Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Delaware funneled money through 14 layers of transactions. Fake import-export firms purchased precursor chemicals from China. Logistics coordinators in Mexico scheduled shipments through Gulf Cartel controlled ports. American trucking companies, most of them legitimate businesses with no knowledge of the cargo, moved product across state lines. The money flowed backward through cryptocurrency exchanges, real estate purchases in Austin and San Antonio, and investments in commercial properties across the Gulf Coast. Raymond Castellanos appeared on every authorization layer. His digital signature unlocked shipping manifests. His encrypted messages coordinated patrol schedule. His bank accounts in the Cayman Islands received quarterly payments totaling $2.3 million over 4 years. He had turned the Texas border region into a secure transit corridor for the Gulf Cartel. One analyst wrote in her preliminary report, "This is not corruption. This is command-level collusion." The suspect did not take bribes to look away. He actively managed cartel logistics using state resources. The FBI director received the briefing at 30:00 p.m. Eastern Time. By 4:00 p.m., the operation expanded, and what came next would make the tunnel discovery look like a footnote. October 15, 2025. 40:00 m. Unified Command Center, San Antonio, Texas. The room hummed with tension. Digital screens covered 3 walls, displaying a map of southern Texas dotted with red markers. Each marker represented a target tied to Operation Harbor Blade. 47 locations across 12 cities. Safe houses in Laredo, stash houses in McAllen, a suspected drug superlab in a ranch compound outside Brownsville, commercial properties in Houston, Dallas, and Austin laundering cartel money, and the private residence of Raymond Castellanos in the affluent hills west of San Antonio. More than 200 federal agents assembled for the coordinated strike. DEA, FBI, IC, ATF, Homeland Security Investigations, U.S. Marshals, Texas Rangers assigned to federal task forces. Black Hawk helicopters waited on tarmacs at 3 military installations. Armored tactical vehicles staged at rally points across the state. U.S. Navy patrol boats positioned in the Gulf to intercept any vessels attempting to flee toward Mexican waters. The operational commander addressed the room at 4:15 a.m. What we execute today will be the largest cartel takedown in Texas history. Every team knows their assignment. Every breach is synchronized. We move at 50 a.m. sharp. No exceptions. No delays. At 4:58 a.m. engine started across the state. At 50 a.m. chaos erupted. In Laredo, SWAT teams breached a 2-story house on the city's east side. Inside, agents found 340 kilograms of methamphetamine packed in false compartments beneath the floor. 3 suspects were detained. One tried to flush a phone down the toilet. Agents recovered it. The contact list contained 17 names tied to Gulf Cartel logistics. In McAllen, DEA tactical units hit a warehouse disguised as an auto repair shop. Mechanics scattered as agents flooded through the loading bay. Behind a false wall, investigators found 127 pounds of heroin and a desktop computer containing shipping schedules for the next 6 months. In Brownsville, the ranch compound required a different approach. Aerial surveillance had identified armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Thermal imaging showed activity inside a large steel frame building that drew excessive electrical power, a suspected drug superlab. At 5:04 a.m., FBI hostage rescue teams approached from 3 directions. Snipers took position on elevated ground overlooking the compound. Armored vehicles breached the main gate. Gunfire erupted. 2 guards fired from behind a pickup truck. Agents returned fire. The exchange lasted 11 seconds. Both guards were wounded and detained. Inside the steel building, agents found what they feared: industrial mixers, chemical drums labeled in Spanish, ventilation systems designed to filter toxic fumes, packaging equipment, and even 90 pounds of methamphetamine in various stages of production. The superlab had been operating for at least 2 years. By 7:30 a.m., the Brownsville compound was secured. Hazmat teams in protective suits began cataloging chemical. The estimated street value of the seized drugs exceeded $12 million. Raymond Castellanos was not at his San Antonio residence when agents arrived. The house was empty, closets cleared, computers missing. A safe behind a painting had been opened and emptied. Someone had warned him. Again, for the second time in 72 hours, a high-value target had escaped hours before a raid. The pattern was unmistakable. Information was leaking from inside the investigation. At 9:40 a.m., the FBI activated a mole hunt within the task force. Every agent with access to operational details was placed under surveillance. Communications were monitored. Financial records were pulled. Polygraph examinations were scheduled. The leak had to be found. Meanwhile, Castellanos vanished. Cell phone signals traced him to the Mexican border at 20:47 a.m., 3 hours before the raids began. By the time agents reached the crossing point, he was gone. Mexican authorities claimed no record of his entry. An arrest warrant was issued. His photograph was distributed to every law enforcement agency in the Western Hemisphere. Interpol flagged his known aliases, but the man who had engineered the Gulf Cartel's Texas corridor had disappeared into the same networks he helped build. The investigation continued without him. Evidence seized from the 47 raids painted a picture of systematic corruption that extended far beyond one compromised official. Forensic analysts examined the server data recovered from the harbor tunnel. Financial investigators traced payment flows across 3 continents. Intelligence officers interviewed detained suspects, slowly building a map of the network's human infrastructure. What emerged was staggering. 17 law enforcement officers across southern Texas had received payments from cartel-linked accounts. Sheriff's deputies, state troopers, border patrol agents, city police officers. Each had been compromised gradually, starting with small favors and escalating to active participation in trafficking operations. One deputy in Webb County had accepted $15,000 per month to provide advance notice of checkpoint locations. A state trooper in Cameron County had been paid $80,000 per shipment to escort cartel trucks through his patrol zone. 2 border patrol agents in the Rio Grande Valley had received $50,000 each to disable surveillance equipment during scheduled crossing windows. The corruption had been methodical. 4 judges in border counties had been identified as cartel assets. They dismissed cases involving known traffickers. They set bail at amounts that ensured release. They signed warrants that allowed cartel attorneys to access evidence before trial. The judicial system itself had been weaponized. Internal investigators found that Raymond Castellanos had personally recruited 7 of the compromised officers. He identified vulnerable personnel, those with gambling debts, those with family members in Mexico, those with financial problems. He approached them through intermediary. He offered solutions that became obligations. One detained officer, a 15-year veteran of the Texas Highway Patrol, told federal investigators. He said it was just information, just telling him when and where patrols would be. He said no one would get hurt. By the time I realized what I was part of, it was too late to stop. The network operated like a parallel law enforcement structure. Cartel shipments moved through Texas protected by officers who were supposed to stop them. Arrests were prevented before they happened. Investigations were sabotaged from within. Evidence disappeared from storage facilities. For 4 years, the Gulf Cartel had operated a shadow police force inside the state of Texas. On October 18, 2025, the scope of Operation Harbor Blade became clear. Federal analysts completed their assessment of the seized financial records. Total narcotics revenue laundered through the network, the 80 million over 4 years. Cocaine moved through the corridor 400 kilograms. Methamphetamine 100 kilograms. Heroin 8 or 90 kilograms. Fentanyl pills an estimated 7 million doses. The human cost was calculated differently. Public health officials estimated that the fentanyl alone contributed to more than 300 overdose deaths across Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. The methamphetamine fueled addiction crisis in communities from Houston to Dallas. The cocaine-funded violence that spilled across the border in both directions. Raymond Castellanos had not merely accepted bribes. He had managed a machine that killed thousands, and he was still free. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On October 21, a DEA informant in Monterrey, Mexico, reported unusual activity at a luxury resort outside the city. A man matching Castellanos' description had been seen meeting with known Gulf Cartel leaders. He was traveling under a different name. He had grown a beard. He had dyed his hair gray. But the informant was certain. Mexican federal police, working with DEA liaison officers, began surveillance on the resort. For 3 days, they tracked Castellanos' movement. He met with cartel financiers. He reviewed documents with attorneys. He appeared to be negotiating his future within the organization. The Gulf Cartel was protecting him. He was too valuable to lose. On October 24 at 11:10 p.m., Mexican special forces moved on the resort. The operation was coordinated with American officials, but executed entirely by Mexican authority. 40 officers approached the compound from multiple directions. Snipers took position. Entry teams prepared breaching charges. At 11:17 p.m., they moved. The breach was violent but brief. 3 armed guards were neutralized. 2 cartel associates attempted to flee through a service entrance and were intercepted. Raymond Castellanos was found in a second-floor suite. He was sitting at a desk reviewing shipping manifests on a laptop. 3 passports lay beside him, each with a different name. He did not resist. Mexican federal police detained him and transferred him to a secure facility in Mexico City. Extradition proceedings began immediately. By November 1, 2025, Raymond Castellanos was on American soil, in federal custody, facing 34 counts including conspiracy to distribute narcotics, money laundering, and corruption of public officials. The trials began in January 2026. Castellanos pleaded not guilty initially. His attorneys argued entrapment. They claimed he had been coerced by cartel threats against his family. They challenged the admissibility of evidence seized from Mexican territory. None of it worked. On March 14, 2026, facing overwhelming evidence and the testimony of 6 cooperating witnesses, Raymond Castellanos changed his plea, guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing lasted 4 hours. Victims' families spoke. Parents who had lost children to fentanyl. Spouses who had buried partners killed by cartel violence. Officers who had served honestly while their colleagues betrayed them. Judge Patricia Mendoza delivered the sentence. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, to be served at the federal Supermax facility in Florence, Colorado. Castellanos showed no emotion as marshals led him from the courtroom. The other defendants faced justice throughout 2026. 17 compromised law enforcement officers received sentences ranging from 8 to 25 years. 4 judges were removed from the bench and sentenced to terms between 12 and 20 years. 41 cartel associates and logistics coordinators received sentences averaging 15 years. The tunnel beneath the Port of Houston was sealed with concrete. The superlab in Brownsville was demolished. The shell companies were dissolved. The offshore accounts were frozen and seized. Total assets recovered, 2023, $4 million. Total narcotics seized more than 12,000 kilograms across all categories. Total arrests 89. the Gulf Cartel's Texas corridor was destroyed. But the story does not end with convictions and seizures. The networks exposed by Operation Harbor Blade revealed something larger than one corrupt official or one criminal organization. They revealed how vulnerable American institutions remain to infiltration by sophisticated criminal enterprise. The Gulf Cartel did not bribe random officers. They identified specific individuals with exploitable weaknesses. They built relationships over years. They created dependency before demanding service. They operated like a corporation recruiting talent. Raymond Castellanos was not an aberration. He was a product of a system designed to create more like him. Federal investigators estimated that similar infiltration networks exist in at least 7 other states. Different cartels, different officials, same methods. The drug trade has evolved. It no longer relies solely on violence. It relies on corruption, on patience, on understanding American systems better than the people who run them. One senior FBI official said, at the conclusion of Operation Harbor Blade, we dismantled one network, but we have to assume others are operating right now, in states we haven't identified, with officials we haven't suspected. This fight never ends. It just changes locations. The Port of Houston is operating normally today. Container ships arrive daily from around the world. Customs inspectors scan manifests. Security protocols have been enhanced. The tunnel entrance is monitored by cameras and sensors, but every inspector who works that port knows what was found beneath their feet, and somewhere, in another city, another official is receiving their first payment. Another tunnel is being dug. Another corridor is being planned. Power does not always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it works in silence. Sometimes it wears a badge. If you are still watching, tap like so more people see this story. Comment EX Pussy if you want this corruption dragged into the light. Share this video so others understand what is happening at our borders. And remember, this story is a fictional dramatization, but the threats it describes are real. The methods are real. The vulnerability is real. The architects are still out there. The next Harbor Blade could be forming right now, and the only defense is vigilance.